All right, I'm gonna call the meeting to order at 6:01 and do roll call here. Tom Flannery.
Here.
Jason Martin.
Here.
Aaron Balderson.
Here.
Jeremiah Kuchenberg.
Here.
And Kayla Levy.
Here.
Wonderful. So we're gonna start with the election of president and vice president, and what I will do is take nominations for the president first. And before we get going on all this, you can nominate and then we will vote once and then we'll move on to the vice president nomination. So I'll open now nominations for president.
I would like to nominate Jason Martin for president. Kayla's done a wonderful job for quite a few years, and I guess I'd like to nominate Jason.
Okay, any more nominations at this time? All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and do a roll call vote so I get everyone's vote noted. So Tom Flannery, you're voting for Jason Martin as president.
So do you say?
You say yay or nay?
Yay.
Jason Martin.
You got vote on that?
I do believe you vote on yourself,
Okay. Yay.
yes. Aaron Balderson.
Yeah.
Jeremiah Kuchenberg.
Yeah.
Kayla Levy.
Aye. Yay.
All right, Jason, so I'm going to have you conduct the election of vice president at this time.
Do I have any nominees for vice president? Slow down, not all at once.
I nominate Tom Flannery for vice president.
Any other nominations? We'll vote on it.
Yes, I'll do roll call. Tom Flannery,
Yay.
Jason Martin,
Aye.
Aaron Balderson,
Aye.
Jeremiah Kuchenberg,
Aye.
Kayla Levy.
Aye.
All right, and I would like to administer the oath of office for you, Jason.
Okay.
Okay. Let me find it real quick here. Okay. Do you solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Iowa, and that you will faithfully and impartially, to the best of your ability, discharge the duties of the office of board president in the Alburnett School District as now and hereafter required by law?
I will.
Wonderful. And Tom, do you solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Iowa, and that you will faithfully and impartially, to the best of your ability, discharge the duties of the office of the Board of Vice President in the Alburnett Community School District as now and hereafter required by law?
I will.
All right, I guess we're gonna determine dates and times of the meetings going forward. We have any changes that need to be made to the 6 o'clock timeframe?
No.
Okay. Do I have a motion to, hold on the 6 o'clock time?
I make a motion to approve the 6 o'clock time.
I'll second it.
Okay, there's been a motion. Got a second? All in favor, say aye.
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 All approved, same sign? Or all against it, say the same sign? Okay, I'll give you the blue cards.
Approve the agenda.
We want to approve agenda first. Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second it.
A motion and a second to approve agenda. All in favor? Aye.
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 Motion passes. Okay, so welcome all visitors. We appreciate all your time here. We have 3 blue cards, looks like. Harley, any more over there? Bethany?
Hi, I'm here tonight because I have some concerns about the current culture within our school. I'm hearing about incidents occurring that seem to be increasing in severity and regularity. So according to the Lynn County Sheriff reports that we receive, there's been a 100% increase in disturbances at the school over last year, and that was for the entirety of last year. There's been a 700% increase just in the first 3 months of school. With that comes a drastic decrease in the SRO hours that are being reported at school. I understand that is due to a staffing issue at the Lynn County Sheriff's Office, but I'd love to know what we as a school, we as a community, and we as parents can do to help supplement that and really start improving the culture and the experience for our kids. On the agenda, I did notice that you're focusing on some policies tonight and approving those, and one that's been specifically called out to be reviewed is in regards to the code of conduct and student discipline. I think it also needs to be emphasized that we look at policies from a lens of things that are going to help build trust, increase accountability, ensure consistency and transparency in how we deal with the business of this school. In my opinion, the absence of trust and the perception of privilege that I do believe is happening right now is creating a culture of chaos and isolation. The chaos is evident in the Lynn County Sheriff reports, and the isolation is what scares me. How many of these students feel like they have no one to turn to, they don't trust the policies that are in place, and so I'd like you to keep that in mind as you approve these policies and review them in the months going forward. 503.1 is a great start. As you know, that's our code of conduct. It's a great place to start looking. We're definitely missing accountability. There's a lot of use of the word may in there. Don't think there's a lot of follow through. Not clear guidance for your audience, who are mainly, minors. Consistency in the disciplinary measures. It defines all the different possibilities, but there's nothing outlining that. There's no structure. Transparency. I feel that any policy, not just 503.1, that ends with administrative regulations regarding this policy needs to be clarified. Why are we hiding administrative regulations? Why aren't those part of the policy? Why aren't those transparent to us as parents so that we can see, what are the consequences? How are these being handled? What are those guidelines? And that full disclosure is really going to promote transparency and consistent enforcement, which will build that trust. Another that I would ask the board to look at is 104 and 104.R1. This is our anti-harassment, anti-bullying policy. I'd like to see it referenced in the code of conduct. It's not today. They're handled very separately, and I feel that those should walk hand in hand. There's no mention of sexual harassment in that policy. And considering we're in a building full of mandatory reporters, I know it's an uncomfortable conversation, but the word sex doesn't actually even exist in that policy. It's not accessible language. If you've read the anti-harassment policy, the things that are framed out in there, I have a hard time interpreting, let alone the ones that are trying to decide, hey, does this apply to me? Does this impact me? Can I go talk to somebody about this? As an adult, I get annual training on anti-harassment. I'm required from my employer. What are we doing to help equip our kids to understand what's right and wrong, what they should be reporting, whether it happens to them or to someone else? And I also have concerns that investigations are done by administration, not out of distrust for administration, but their job is to build relationships with these kids day in and day out. How can they objectively investigate some of these, especially the ones that are growing in severity, some of these instances? And then my biggest concern is that bias creates that perceived privilege. Well, that person wasn't held accountable because they're an athlete, or because their parents on the school board, or the mayor, whatever it might be. So that's my concern with our anti-harassment policy. I would also consider that all code of conduct and harassment violations, regardless of disciplinary measures, should be reviewed by the board. Primarily, how can you approve and defend a policy if you don't know it's working? So if you don't see these incidents and see their occurrence, see how they're being handled, how do you know if we have the right measures in place? And the final one I'd like to bring up is actually one that will be reviewed tonight, 502.4. It's not disciplinary at all, so it's not been pulled out. And this is your student grievance process regarding board and administrative policies. I just want to read a quick snippet from that. It actually states, "It is the goal of the board to resolve complaints at the lowest organizational level." Within that policy, a student has to go through a teacher to question a board policy, not to question something that's happened in that classroom, but to question a board policy. They have to start with a teacher. That teacher gets to make the decision on whether that goes up the chain. Reading that as an adult, the first thing I read was, they don't care what I have to say. If I am not even allowed in that policy to talk directly to the board, they don't care what I have to say. So how is it fair to expect your students to be forthcoming during times of extreme distress, embarrassment, vulnerability, when something has happened that they need to report, if they don't even feel like they can come to you for something that's a policy that they don't feel is fair? It's not exactly the open door policy I would expect for us to be Purple on Purpose. So, and I really don't know if that is your goal. I mean, it states in there that it is the board's goal. So I'm here tonight because I live by the motto to be the change you want to see in the world. And so I am here to support this school, this community, and all of you as our elected officials and our administration, so that we can drive for continuous improvement over willful blindness, because right now I feel like we are sitting in a place of willful blindness. So, thank you.
Thanks, Bethany. Deb?
I don't think I can add anything more than what she has said, besides I would take up, I don't want to take up anybody else's time, but to having a daughter that goes through this every day, it's, like you said, it's not very Purple on Purpose when she goes to a teacher and she doesn't get anything back. It's just hard.
Thanks, Deb. Christine?
Interestingly, my comments are along the same line, and I've shared with all of you. As a parent, I have concerns about the escalating violence, the perceived escalation, and obviously my awareness of the escalation in our school and on our property since the school year started. As such, I have talked with the administration about policy review, and for it to be prioritized, and for it to ensure our administration is not only equipped with the appropriate guidance and consequences that mirror our Board of Education zero tolerance policies, but to make sure that our policies really are current with the environment of behavior that our students are exhibiting. I know that on the agenda today, in addition to Board Policy 503.1 Student Conduct Policy, I would also recommend the review of 3 other policies. Board Policy 104, Anti-Bullying and Harassment, Board Policy 213.1, Parent, Guardian, and Community Concern, as well as Board Policy 503.4, Good Conduct Policy. And in reading 503.4, Good Conduct Policy, there seems to be an inverse of the consequence that pertains to some of the details of that particular policy. Some of the offenses outlined have a more minimized severity of consequence and should look opposite to me in referencing severity involved in that policy. I think form should meet function, and I'd love that 503.4 to be reviewed as well. Additionally, I would recommend, many of us in the corporate world do annual cultural surveys. I would strongly recommend that the board and the administration engage in a cultural survey to assess safety concerns. I think it should be an anonymous survey. I think it should go to all students. I think it should be inclusive of all staff and parents. I think the only way the board and administration can know that any of your efforts are making a positive difference is to know what your baseline is. And I think we need to know what that is. I also would concur with what has been said eloquently by Bethany, that the school needs to provide more tools in education for students to thwart bullying behavior and to equip them, and perhaps most importantly, empower them to know how to behave appropriately and to stand up for themselves within policy. There are a lot of students that are scared to react in any way because they don't want an adverse consequence. And that's not how we want to educate our kids. We want them to be able to stand up for themselves and hold each other accountable, and to really know what kind of conduct is becoming for students that attend our school. We're small enough, we're nimble enough, and I think we all want the same thing. And so I'm not here to be an adversary. I'm here as a concerned parent in partnership and hopes to be constructive and to partner with all of you to make things better, to make things safer. Our kids are watching and they're learning from all of us and from each other every day. And I want to make sure that that we're holding ourselves accountable to be the best that we can be. And I want a safest environment in our schools that we can conceive of so kids can learn and thrive. So I appreciate your time in listening to my concerns tonight and prioritizing those. I think a good place to start are those policies to give more teeth to consequences and more guidance so that we can have the environment we all strive to have.
Thanks, Christine. I think that we should take a look at some of these policies. We appreciate you very much bringing your concerns. I think that we need to look at these policies to make sure that they do reflect this board. Some of these policies are probably outdated. It's probably fair enough to say that it would be a good idea to take a look at them, and bottom line is we want everybody to feel safe and want to be here. That's purple on purpose to me, is that we want our kids here on purpose because they want to be. And I think it's our duty to make sure that that's happening. So thank you very much, all of you. Appreciate it. Can we move to board reports? Department heads, building and grounds.
Corey Armand is here tonight, and we're tag teaming our presentation. So we are going to walk through a process with you that won't sound. Okay. Did I do something?
No.
We're going to review a process with you about how we've gone through the prioritizing process of facility projects. So I'm going to lead from the screen. Corey is your resource tonight to really dig in and ask questions about specific projects. So that's the tag team part. I'm going to talk with you about process. And while I'm always happy to field your questions about projects, it's in the room, so it's your night to get to ask some specific questions. So some of this is a bit of review. These are some slides that I put together actually to speak with the foundation recently to give some context to what things they might be interested in putting some of their own fundraising behind at their request to just understand our process a little bit more thoroughly. So during the winter of 21-22, as many times as you went through the boardroom upstairs, this should not look strange to you. You know that we had this working list on the whiteboard, and it was messy, and we left it there for multiple months. We wanted to make sure that we gave it ample time to unfold. Oftentimes in the middle of entirely unrelated meetings, things would come up, and we would add it to the list. It wasn't a list about what was a good idea or a bad idea, it was just what had gotten identified. I think, if my memory serves me correct, you were invited to even put things on that list if there was something you were wondering about. The importance of giving this time and space was to really draw out all ideas. Now that doesn't mean that we blanketed all of the staff around the community about what they thought we needed here in the building, but it did give us time to make sure we were tuning into conversations. The people who work in this building every day, they maintain it, they watch children interact with the facility, they know what works and doesn't work. Those are the voices that we needed to hear most. So that would be Corey and his staff and the administrative staff and teachers that wanted to provide some of that input. So that's where this list came from, and it was messy and it was very broad. Then, we went through a process of trying to not prioritize yet, but just understand the scope of the kind of projects we were looking for. So we broke them into 3 broad categories. We did not seek formal estimates at that time. We were just using our best estimates from prior experience-related projects, just to give us something to work from. The purpose in creating these 3 categories was so that we would ensure, after prioritizing, that we could schedule in projects from all 3 levels. It's easy to pick low-hanging fruit. It's easy to figure out what's cheap and fast and get it done. But when we've got our eye on long-range planning, 3 years, 5 years, even 10 years sometimes, we have to allow space for the things that are gonna take more money, they're gonna take more time, and they're gonna take more planning. So that's why we created the 3 tiers. We then did a very formal prioritizing process. This is a process that I have used over and over again in my administrative career, and quite frankly, if you wanna try it on for size, we've even used it to pick family vacation destinations when family couldn't get on the same page. It's really a good process when things are complicated and opinions are all over the board. So we did that internally and ended up with then, in each tier, our priorities. The next step was to eliminate the lowest scoring priorities. It didn't mean that they were gonna go away, but we were working on a 3-year plan. So they were eliminated for now. I'm just gonna give you a second to absorb what's up there. And I'm gonna use bus garage extension as my example to speak to. This is a long-range goal of mine, is to get our buses undercover. I think it's very important. I think it's something that we need to strive for, but it shook out lower on the priority scale, and so it will need to be talked about in 4 or 5 years to begin that planning. So it doesn't go away. It just was taken off the 3-year plan. So these are the items that by color, so these are not in order necessarily of how they ranked, but they're sorted, color-coded by the scope and cost we estimate is associated with them. And then they are parceled out to the PEPAL, Physical Plant and Equipment Levy budget, and the SAVE, or 1 cent sales tax budget, so that we can make room for them over time, 3 years. Now, board, you will remember that those worksheets, and we'll look at them here in a minute, they're meant to be fluid in that you could move one up a year, back a year, we would guide you on it should go PEPAL, it should go SAVE. They're not locked in stone at this point, but the priorities are. So they now live in those long-range financial plans that we haven't looked at this table for a while now, but you know this is how this works, that we look at history and we look way out into the future. So I'm gonna pause on this screen. Possibly you're gonna want me to open up the worksheets and talk more about that tonight. Possibly you're not. Corey's in the room. Now's your chance to clarify. These are projects with Trimble language attached to them because they're internal documents. So I'm happy to work with Corey here, and Josh and Adam were involved in this too. What would you like to know about this list?
Is there a certain importance based on the font?
No, I actually, after I cut and pasted this, realized, my goodness, complex fencing looks really important. No, it was just an oversight on my
Okay,
part.
all right.
Do you mind bringing another sheet up?
Yeah, no, I'm ready to go. No? Yes, no, I don't. Give me a second. Okay, so for context, let me just do some scrolling here. This is top of the worksheet, history, you are looking at PEPAL right now. So you can see revenue across the top and then expenditures along the bottom. Reminder, the yellow lines, look clear to the left of the italic for the yellow. We spend PEPAL dollars on transportation, technology, and projects to approximately, well, again, I'm in the other order, technology, $80,000 a year, transportation, $140,000 a year, and then general maintenance projects, $150,000. This is a fund that is cash, truly carryover, so if you spent $120,000 because timing worked that way and bills came in that way, we, in maintenance, for example, the $30,000 not spent rolls over and is available for the next year. So that's how this worksheet works. And then if I just go to projects, which is really what we're talking about right now, and then get you pretty current here, that's how we are beginning to plan out of PEPAL. Important to note, line 34. When we did our planning for the big project, we have a couple things at work here. We've got our general obligation bond, our revenue purpose bond, and collectively, they pretty much cover the entire project. We did allow ourselves some room to make sure if needed. We have another $150,000 available. We are currently on track to be well within our contingency amount, so we don't anticipate needing to touch that $150,000 for the facility project at all, but until we are done, we are gonna continue to protect that in case we need it. But for example, if I get down far enough so you can see some balances, as soon as we're confident that that is not going to be needed, then you can watch your balance at the bottom. I'm just gonna pull it out. We like to maintain about $100,000 in PEPAL on an annual basis, end of fiscal year. So that puts us well within that range. The 23-24 that's currently showing $40,000 negative, not something I want you to be concerned about, because the $150 likely goes away. Something in the colored section perhaps doesn't get billed until the following year. That's kind of how summer projects work. And we just are placeholding right now these roof costs because we have our roof assessment back, and we do need to dig in and spend more time on how we want to time those out. So it's a worksheet. I'm not at all concerned that you're seeing now some negatives at the bottom. Perfectly comfortable with you seeing them because I know that we have pathways here. So that's the PEPAL side of it. We do the same thing in SAVE. The worksheet looks identical, same concept. Revenue at the top. We have the vast majority of SAVE goes to pay for our bond, revenue purpose bond, not our general obligation bond. So you see that happening near the top. It's actually line 14. And projects at approximately $100,000 out of SAVE make up the rest of this worksheet. So again, if we're just moving to current, you can see that we've pushed out some things into later years. What questions does this generate?
Is that more student parking in the northwest? Is that for expanding that lot out there to the west, I'm assuming?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And when you talk about the roof replacement, is that the one over here in the elementary?
It starts there, as I recall. Go ahead.
Yeah, I would start there with the roof assessment. People kind of broke it out, what would be the first one they would replace. Obviously, that was one of them. And then kind of where we land for all the other sections after that, so.
But that'd be a timeline for replacing every single roof surface, excluding the new stuff, that's, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Well, and the new stuff would be on that list eventually. Yeah.
No,
What's, not fun when we talk about school dollars is that we have to save room in our budgets always for these things. They're not glamorous, they're not gonna promote school spirit or solve any of the topics going on the table tonight, but we have to allow room in the budget for these things.
And what's the balances on that one?
That parking, is that the one to the west?
To the west, yeah.
Are we gonna, looking at paving anything before we're expanding the parking lot, we expand the parking lot first, but
I mean, we talked about paving.
Paving is not a priority on here, more parking is short-term priority.
The field prep vehicle, is that gator, or is that something different?
No, this would be more of a, like, kind of what they use down at the baseball field, like an all-purpose bunker rake, I guess it would be called, or softball, that type of,
And that would go up to the foundation then?
yes.
Can you go back to that spreadsheet, please?
You were asking about the balance,
Yeah.
Kayla. So, yeah, again, I don't get too concerned as we see these fluctuate out in the future because, we just can decide, like, I'm on capital now, you were asking about save. There. These balances up there. I was about to repeat
I was
myself,
like-
sorry.
I'm like, they're almost identical.
Yeah, they were exactly the same thing. So this is your save,
Okay.
bottom balance. You have room to do nice things and achieve your priorities. And I truly feel like the prioritizing process was given the time and space that it needed and deserved. We accomplished so much with the facility project, the building project, that was on that list before. It was just time to start fresh and get new eyes on now what.
And this took into account the borrowing and that kind of
Mhm.
thing.
And paying that off, yes.
Yeah, and then, is there a reason why some of those things couldn't move to save instead of PEPAL to not decrease that balance as much? And-
Correct. And I would hope that the board will always give that ability for us to keep it fluid.
Mhm.
Sometimes when we bring a project to you that requires board approval, we try and specify. There was a time when we would use more general language that would say PEPAL or SAVE, which would give us the ability to move it around. Lately, we've been designating and we're comfortable with that too.
Okay.
The language on the revenue purpose statement matches the language that's allowable in PEPAL. So you can consider them same function.
So fiscally, you're comfortable.
I'm very comfortable with what's going on here. Most important, I want to make sure tonight that you get to needle Corey for a while, because I asked him to be here.
Did we get our power turned on down there?
The complex.
Yeah. It's on.
The high school basketball team will be practicing in there Wednesday morning,
Oh, yeah.
and Mr. Moritz was to reach out today and begin scheduling for December 1st for community use.
that's complex.
Yeah.
What about lighting down there next to, well, where it's dark, I guess, down there? They haven't done anything on the
It's in the
summer.
grass area.
Up to the south of the building?
What's that?
South of the building or the?
Well, it'd be to the east of the new complex there and south of where our parking is.
In the grass.
Yeah, in the grass and in that other little
Yeah.
parking lot area.
I know there's lights on the building, I know they're not super bright, they're more directional down, but, we don't.
What about even some kind of, and this is minor, but, my mom's one of those, she hit one of those posts and stuff, and I know other people have done it too, but even some kind of reflector, something on those posts down there, just didn't know how to do, talk about them, just lighting and making something a little bit brighter, just so people can see that kind of stuff, like I say, she's not the only one that's happened to, but, has there been any talk
I
about
know
that?
we've done reflectors in the past, and those poles just got rolled around and they break off, you know. But no, we've not talked about.
Like simple little screw-in reflectors or something like that, just, I mean, for them, or some kind of hanging tab even on the cables, you know, anything like that too. Minor.
We did that too. That needs to be refreshed.
Yeah.
And your questions for Corey do not have to be limited to this list. He's very capable of whatever questions you want to ask him about facility.
So she's comfortable, but how comfortable are you? Timeline wise, everything, I know there's, we're in the limbo on some of the stuff, but.
Yeah, as far as construction goes. Yeah, they're making progress, I mean, right now, that's all we can ask for, is seeing a little bit here and there every day. So,
We did curtain dividing gym space.
We did.
That's out at the complex, correct?
That curtain divider, I
Yeah.
just that.
So the curtain divider will go into the elementary gym.
Oh, until elementary gym.
Yep.
So is there a curtain divider out at that one too?
No, there's nothing out there. Well, there'll be a batting cage out there.
Has that come in yet?
It just got delivered today.
So the curtain is gonna be installed in here?
Yes.
Is there a timeline on that?
I thought they were a similar ship date, but I haven't heard about the
I
curtain.
haven't heard about it either, but it was supposed to be around this time, so.
So probably real soon.
Yeah. So then we'll have to just take that cage down and then put that curtain on.
So will that cage go out there?
No.
Where will that
That
cage
cage was kind of retrofitted in that space, so that, we're not sure what we're doing with that cage currently. So this cage, will be installed like professionally.
Oh, the one that's out at the complex? And that's probably why, or the reason too why that we probably couldn't accommodate a curtain out there, right? Because the cage would be more than
Correct, it's gonna be right where that curtain would be as well, so.
But this one will come out of here, the new curtain will go in there.
Yes.
Soon, probably in the month of December, I
I
assume.
would imagine so.
It's interesting. Go ahead.
Well, I would imagine you all saw the gator. No questions for Cory about the gator.
Jeremiah already did know that. There is so what I did is I bought just kind of a base model, so I kind of do my own thing to it. So I got a bunch of stuff ordered, which I need to get with P&K and see where that's at. So it'll still have a cab and heat, turn signal kit, kind of a rack on the back to hang stuff on.
Lift? This look great.
Well, I am getting a hydraulic lift on but not one of
That's
those.
what I meant. It looked cool.
No. It's fancy.
I knew
one.
exactly.
A 12-inch lift so it can do more off-roading, you're talking?
Get up and over those.
Curves. Get up over you might need 12-inch lifts and get over the curves and.
Is there anything on this list that for you is a big priority,
Yeah.
more so than anything else?
What you mean, Ryan, football field irrigation, and me and Stenzel have been working on that, and they were supposed to have me quotes by tonight, so I could kind of talk about, but, that is a big one for me, just for saving time,
Which one did you say?
irrigation on the football field.
Oh, okay, I see it there. What's Southeast Elementary doors?
The southeast elementary doors they're currently the old metal doors that are down there. It should be southeast and southwest, and just updating those to like the new aluminum, kind of what matches just to the north of
Like
it.
storefront door rather
Yeah.
than the old metal ones?
Yeah.
I should also mention that we do save room in the budget for things that come up, if I didn't say that earlier. So for example, we've recently purchased some walk-behind vacuums because of the increasing amount of carpet in the building. Friday, we actually got a demo on a riding vacuum cleaner, but we also talked about a larger extraction, is what they call it. To me, it's garbage cleaner. So there, we have these things that we know are gonna be ongoing and need to be addressed more in the moment. This was just to help us get our head around the things that might take more planning, and make sure that they get a place in the 3-year plan.
Something else, not to add to all the stuff up there, but I've had the question asked, and I've wondered it myself, what about bleachers on the other side of the new gym down there? I mean, it gets pretty crowded down there when we have, events and stuff down there, and I can't answer the reason why we don't have them in there.
It's certainly something we've talked about here too. It did come down to the process of prioritizing and what actually made the whiteboard, then made the priority list. Would we all agree? Yep, we just have to have packing order.
What's the acoustic panels in the elementary gym? Is that like tactile panels that they could put up in the,
Just
for sound?
echo and,
From the standpoint of watching a game in there and the volume of everything, is that what you're talking
Well,
about?
it's a
Well,
teaching environment
and
first
for
and foremost.
regular class in there, those kids young kids are a little noisy.
Well, and then if it's from a concert standpoint, obviously with the finishing of the auditorium, we wouldn't have a concert in there. But it's more from like PE classes and that sort of thing you're talking.
And if we do when we get the curtain, 2 PE classes if there's overlap somewhere. And so that would help with deadening that noise a little bit.
That'll be electric too, right?
Entrance signage, is that like the sign we had out here, or what's?
Probably a better phrase for that would be directional signage. It's more of a general blanket. They're hard to figure out sometimes.
Okay.
I think that's a good idea too, you know, you come in here for a weekend on tournaments, and I know there's always signs pointing to the main gym this way, elementary gym, you know. and
Whiteboards.
along the whiteboard, yeah.
And designating what entrance is which, so people know what door to walk up to, that kind of thing.
Does Mr. Wop still do some CNC stuff with students?
I don't. I'm not
He
a
has
fan.
one, but it's only for, well, he hasn't hooked it up yet, it was a new thing he got before the shop was open, but it just does wood,
Oh,
and so I don't know if that would be it.
I was gonna say maybe a collaboration with the industrial arts department could do some signage, make some signs. I remember when we were, I think we were part of purchasing that CNC router for Mr. Wop. So, could be an opportunity maybe.
Mhm.
So that was a bit of a long report, but it was dual, so we get double time. Anything else for Cory?
Thanks, Cory.
Thanks,
It's
Cory.
mandatory, you have to stick around too, by the way. It's mandatory, you have to stick around.
I was just saying, yeah, feel free to make your way out.
I knew that was coming. How about our math department? Do we have anything for the math department?
We're here.
All right.
I'm Suzanne Smith. I am the PLC leader for the math department, and I teach all of the upper math classes, Algebra 2 and up. And thanks to Ryan, last spring he introduced us to this book, Building Thinking Classrooms in Mathematics by Peter Lindahhl, or Lindahhl. It's Swedish, so who knows? Sorry, I'm Norwegian, so. So this is an amazing book, and we are trying to incorporate it into our classrooms. And one of the things that it requires is getting the students up and out of their desks. And I want to thank y'all for approving the whiteboards for our math classrooms. So as soon as we get those, then we can put this into better action than we're doing it now. Right now in my classroom, what's happening is the kids come in, they put their phones in the phone booth that my brother made for me, they draw a card, and they go sit at that group of people. And it changes every day or every other day depending on my mood. But at least 3 times a week, because we've got to get them moving and sitting with different people, get them out of their comfort zone. And I have absolutely no kickback with it so far. And then what we do after that is Mr. Morris wanted me to talk to you about one of the crazy things that I do in my classroom that I kind of got from this book. It's called speed dating, and we did it in pre-calculus, and they just, instead of the kids having a worksheet and doing problems or moving, passing things around, the kids move. So we have an outside loop and an inside loop, and they move so that they sit with a different person every time, every 5 minutes. So they work on whatever problem's on this desk, they'll work on that, time's up, everybody up, we'll rotate, and now they're at a different table with a different person and a different set of activities. Amazing, you should try it sometime. So that's what we're doing in the upper math classes, and Nicole's going to talk to you about her work. You're welcome.
I teach the geometry classes, so we have a few different things going on. Right now we have geometry and construction, which we've got the shop going, we've got some projects coming up, which is really exciting for the students that are in there. It's a hard class, but they're learning a lot, and they're finding a lot of connection between what they're doing mathematically and the real world. So they're seeing it in a much different light, and it's helping out a lot. I also have the regular geometry classes that are taught in a more traditional manner. We've been doing a lot of fun things in there. We're trying to incorporate as much as we can from this book, as well as some other activities. I have an advanced, or not advanced, but an accelerated Algebra 1 and geometry mix, which is going really, really quickly. They are finding a lot of challenge, but they are working really hard, so I'm really proud of them. And then we also have a upcoming college applied math class that will be helping some of the kids that want to go into the trades get that basic foundation that they need to be able to be successful in those apprenticeship programs. So that's where I'm coming from, and so I'm going to pass it on to Noah.
There, I'm Noah Vaughter. I teach 8th grade math and Algebra 1, and also the amped algebra class that we just incorporated this year as well. So 8th grade math is going awesome. Kids are doing great, and with this book, giving them a card every single day, they actually look forward to like sitting with the people. Sometimes they're like, yes, or sometimes they're like, oh. but it keeps it kind of exciting, something different every single day, and they can look forward to. So that part's fun. It also talks about the vertical non-permanent surfaces, which are whiteboards, and they showed that just kids standing up, walking around, working in groups, and also being able to see what other people are doing is very helpful to their learning. And also kids ask all the time if they can work on a whiteboard, so they just really enjoy that rather than an old-fashioned piece of paper. So that will be very helpful once we get those. I think that the kids will really benefit from them and enjoy them. I also want to focus on the amped algebra that we just incorporated this year. I think that it's a very awesome class that we're doing because you can really see the connection. Kids are starting to kind of understand, like, oh, that's why we write equations. That's how we can implement functions into business. So we're writing profit equations, revenue equations, and their expenses, and all of this is going into the business atmosphere as well. So we're working on getting a job right now for Archery Club, building other t-shirts. We already ordered the heat presses. So all it takes now is just to get the order come through. Then we've already kind of done all the research on getting our shirts, our heat transfer sheets. So once we have those, and we're able to actually have the kids make those t-shirts. And it's just a cool process for them to do because, you know, they actually get to make it. They get to, everything that they've learned, they're putting in it, they're working hard, and they can see it at the end and be, feel self-accomplished. So with that, they get to put all the money, or not the money, the math into it with the money that they have spent and earned and all that. And we're not making a profit, but we will use those numbers to see, okay, so if we were to sell it at this price, then what would our profit be? After all these expenses, the revenue that we bring in, what would our profit be? So they're using all of those things into one, and it's just a really cool connection that the kids get to see this year, so very grateful for it. Thank you.
I'm Ryan Gable. I teach 6th and 7th grade math. Like everyone's talked about the book, teaching younger middle schoolers, getting out of their seats, having to think a little bit more. That's helped them out. It keeps them moving because I know not everyone was sitting in a desk for 40 minutes to hear me talk. I can have a boring voice every now and then. But try to have some fun in there, keep them moving. Both classes, we've done a lot of just kind of getting basics down so we can start applying. That's where we're at both of them. 6th grade, we talked about the adding, subtracting, multiplying by the whole numbers, and now we're applying that, doing some ratios and fractions and stuff like that. 7th grade, the big thing is negatives, and kids had fun with that. But we got through the basic stuff, now we're really applying it, and we're doing a good job understanding the connections between, okay, this is what we did before, now what are we doing, and seeing how it kind of all grows on it. But I got some whiteboards early in the year that I just kind of put stuff on the wall. And it's fun to see them like, ooh, can I have this whiteboard, can I use this whiteboard rather than just sitting at tables. And it's fun to see, so, yeah, thank you. Keegan? Sorry.
I'm Keegan Gessner, I teach 4th grade. Some things that we've been doing, Jamie will talk more about Graham Fletcher. A lot of us went and listened to he's a big math guru, and he talks a lot about progression and how we should be teaching progression of addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, fractions, etc. And so we've been doing some work in the last couple of years of what that progression really should look like, all the way through our elementary. Realigning it, making sure, nope, you're good, like where it should be with that. So upper elementary, we're more multiplication, division, and fractions. Coming off subtraction, though, knowing where our kids should be, coming into us is always good to know that, this is where it should be, but whatever. We've also been adding a lot of math talks into our math lessons, number talks that they're called. We've been getting more and more examples from our AA grant people have been coming and giving us more examples of different things. quick images, true, false, quote counting, number strings, et cetera. There's tons, clothesline math, we use that a lot. And adding just a lot of stuff where the kids are doing and talking. It's been a lot of, here's the thing, now everybody talking. It gives it a great chance for all kids to have an entry point into the problem and not just those that are maybe traditionally a little bit better at math. It gives everybody a chance to enter in and to hear everybody else talking, and also to contribute, to get some answers out. And we've also been adding a lot of number sense activities and making sure that our math is a lot more accessible and hands-on for all of our kiddos, because we know that's the best way to start our kiddos and then progress them through like Grand Fletcher stuff, so.
Well, I'm gonna jump in on, wait, we just came off the, I'm Tammy Hooper, I teach first grade, so I'm here to talk about the littles, K1 and 2. Graham Fletcher has been a huge idea maker for us right now on making sure that, I've been in education a long time, so I was taught to teach in a procedural way for math, that you teach a strategy and then you give them a problem and they show you that they can do that. While Graham Fletcher is all about give them a real life problem, let them show you the math that they understand, and they talk in their math communities. So a lot of what I'm hearing is happening up there is how we're doing it in the younger grades. Also, he's big on making sure that you have concrete learners, foundational understanding, you follow that progression of math. So we've slowed down a lot in first grade. We used to teach, no matter if they've got it or not, we have to move on, that's what the book says. And we've actually slowed everything way down. So you might find us teaching decomposing of numbers for 6 weeks, because that's what we need. We need to explore it, we need to give them real life situations and see what they can do with it. They learn from each other more than they learn from me, and I learn from them every day. So as a team, we meet in our PLCs daily and we revamp. This is what we had planned, but we can't move to that because we need to go back to this. So our data shows that it's a very engaging and successful way to teach, and it's been a big change for me, really scary change to try that way of teaching, but the kids have taken it over and it's actually really fun. So we're looking forward to new math curriculum coming in the next couple of years that hopefully will fit into what we've tried really hard as a staff to do.
What are you seeing as how are the kids receiving this? What difference do you, you've been doing this a little while, like what difference are you seeing from?
Oh, total. When you taught procedurally, they might have got it for that time you were teaching, but if you left it and then tried to come back, so many would forget because it was more like a memory thing than it was understanding and being able to do it. This way of teaching just gives them free access to learn what math really is, because there's not one way to find an answer. It's what do you know and what can you use to get to what you need.
Is it hard to get through all the material if you're slowing things down? Are they still at the same spot that they are?
What we had to do, like our first grade team really rewrote our curriculum, and we looked basically at our core standards, and we know what we have to teach, and we make sure that before they go to second grade, we might be stuck here, but we do what we can to make sure that we continue, and then we just always come back and reteach that.
So they're still at the same point that
Yep.
they have been.
Yeah,
Where did you finish?
we just are more focused on those core standards instead of what that math curriculum that we bought said we should try to teach. So.
Good.
love the idea of the speed dating and getting the students like out of their comfort zone and going around and having to sit with it, because, I mean, it's all of our tendency to go in and sit with the same people every single time, and so I love, now have you taught with this book before, or how did you come up with it?
So I'm currently in grad school at UNI, and we had to do some kind of project, and we had to look over 3 people's groups things, and somebody came along that, and like, as we were talking last year, like, we want our kids to start thinking a little bit more, because a lot of it is a lot of procedure based, okay, this is how you do, and all of a sudden, okay, we're done with that standard, it goes out comes in one year, goes out the other, and they forget a lot of it. And so we want them to start thinking a little bit more, and we made a goal to some degree, most of it, a lot of us got pretty far into it, and there's some ideas that we're not like, might not fit right to us, but there's some stuff where we kind of tinker and stuff. And I just remember there was one day this year where students were doing order of operations, I gave them 4 numbers, and I gave numbers 1 through 30. And it was just amazing to see 6th graders, like, ooh, how can I get this? And once they got okay, 31 through 40, go, and like, got it. I was like, oh, dang it. But it's just fun to see them doing math, but really thinking that they're doing math, but they're also applying stuff that we've done in the past, or that we've done in class.
And it brings back to what she said about the elementary schools too. It's like, there's so many different ways to get the answer, and he talks about how we have taught our students over time to mimic what we do, instead of to think about how to get to the point where they totally understand. So there's some things where you have to go through the mimicking process, like, I have to show my child how to, tie her shoe all the time. Well, she's 29, but that's a different story. Let the dog out, maybe. So there's some things that you have to teach the kids by mimicking, but then once you get to the point, it's like, all right, now let's think, how can we expand on this? Where can we go from here? And he has tons of resources, not in this book, but online. He had a conference earlier this year that none of us made it to, and I'm just kind of kicking myself for that. But it's really amazing, and the one thing that stuck with me right away at the book this summer when I started reading it was, if we continue to do things we've always done the same way we've always done them and expect different results, not gonna happen. And this was just an eye-opener for me after 37 years of teaching, and 35. And with these young kids, I'm just like, hey, let's go, let's rock this out.
And it was kind of cool too, because I read the book and I was fortunate to put Grant Fletcher as well, and I know Grant was talking a little bit, that he referenced Peter Ledgell, or whatever he pronounces his name. But there's a lot of connections between the two, and it's like, I've read this book, and he talks quite a bit about member talks, and I think kind of all the way from 6-12, we implement at least 1 or 2, maybe once a week, maybe once every now and then, but we started implementing a lot more stuff, so it's cool to see K-12 that everything's, it relates, and that we're doing the same processes over and over, especially if they feel comfortable the younger ages, when I say to middle school, and we keep going, and high school.
We've even done it in some of the Kerber classes, the calc and the stats class. At the beginning of the stats, we did some, not really number talks, but like number theory stuff. Okay, let's look at what these numbers really mean in the course of stats. So I think we've all been real happy with what we've been able to do so far. But as soon as we get the whiteboards, then it's like, get them up, out of their seats. Okay, now let's move, and you can see what you're doing. And you're allowed to peek at somebody else's work.
Yeah, I think one thing too with building a thinking classroom is it's just part of our mission at Alburnett to build lifelong learners. And if we are just telling them what to do every single time, and they're reliant on us to give them the answers or tell them exactly how to do it, then we're not really teaching them how to think for themselves when they go out in the real world. And whatever career path they choose, or college, they're not thinking for themselves. They're just following orders basically, and we don't want that from our kids. We want to give them the best they can. So we think that teaching them how to think is the first part of really being a successful learner. So
It's so relatable to real life, so in the work world. So I really appreciate you guys taking your time out of your evening to come. This one of my favorite things is to hear the reports from you guys. So
You guys are doing good work.
So post-COVID, are we where we need to be now? Is that in the past? I mean, we're,
I
There's,
don't bring it up.
there's,
I don't talk about it.
there's still a couple of gaps in the high school that, we knew where some of them were, but now it's just kind of like what I'm finding is like with my Algebra 2 kids. It's like, okay, let's go through a couple of these concepts, and they're like, I have no idea what you're talking about. I'm like, well, I guess that's what we're gonna talk about today. And then we just take care of it. But it's more of filling in the gaps than knowing where the gaps are now. It's like, we have to find them, and they're showing up. But I think we're catching them.
anything else?
With the addition of the whiteboards, is there anything else you feel like could benefit you for, like, not furniture, but like just things in your classroom, like a whiteboard, that would help
Well,
with your,
Yes.
with the things that you're trying to implement?
We had, I talked to, and I don't mean to throw Brian under the bus, but he and I had miscommunication. We had wanted to get individual whiteboards for each of the kids so that they could work, so they could, even if they're at the desk or at the table, the whiteboard together, they could still work a little bit on their own. And they have graphs on the back of them. And he thought I had ordered them, and I thought he had ordered them. And we'd really like to get those class sets, those individual whiteboards, so that the kids could, I mean, my Cal kids are on the board all day long. I can't get them off the board. It's like, go sit down. And they're like, no, I don't know the problem. And I was like, well, you're not going to, because I haven't taught you that part. But they love the whiteboards, and even, if they could just scribble on I wish our desk had been whiteboard tops, and then they could just write on the top of the desk, and they love that. And because it's not permanent, they're like, I can make a mistake, I can erase it. But they don't want to erase on their paper. This, like, the paper is permanent, but the whiteboard's not. So is anything, that's what we've discussed, is that between Brian and I, there was miscommunication, and that got dropped. So we'd like to get those for the classroom.
So are they ordered now?
Pardon?
Are they ordered now?
They are not. I've just kind of been sitting and idly trying to figure out where to go from here.
I know where you can go.
Okay.
You want to talk to me tomorrow?
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, the double-sided ones, yeah, graphical ones, I think are really
Yeah. That it? Thanks, guys, appreciate it.
Thank you for your time.
Tammy provided me a pretty nice segue into what I'm gonna talk about. You gotta stay so you can hear. I apologize, I don't have enough for maybe everybody that's staying, but this is gonna be our new elementary report card. So Tammy talked about priority standards, which we've been working on for the last several years. And I, kind of looked at our reporting structure back to parents, and I felt like maybe it didn't match necessarily what we were reporting out to parents. Wasn't everything that we were doing. And so when we prioritized our standards, I had the teachers get those to me, and then they're in the form of an I can statement. So essentially some positive language for a student, right? So I can do this, I can do that. And you can look through, and all those are on, this is just a copy of what the third grade one would look like. So essentially what we'll do, this will be the report card, so it'll be, as Tammy talked about, those priority standards. Those priority standards are, what does a child have to have in order to go to the next grade, essentially. So you asked the question, Tom, that's what, do we teach other stuff? Of course we do, but this is that. In third grade, these are the things that child needs to know in order to be successful in fourth grade and beyond. And so what we had before, so under language arts, for example, it just said reading or literature. So it didn't really give you an idea because that's such a broad thing, right? It's kind of like our ISASP. If you don't dive into the IO assessments and you get an ELA score, an English Language Arts score, and it might be right here. Really, when you dive into that, your kid might be reading over here and writing might suffer, but it gives you one score. And I kind of felt like that's what we were doing with our reporting. And so we tried to be a little more detail-oriented around those standards. And so this is what parents will get here in a few weeks. And so on a 4-3-2-1 scale. And then it talks about what the scale means here on the indicators of academic performance. And then, of course, we have some attributes for success, things that we think, how we'll rate students on attentive to their assignments and things like that, and timeliness and work ethic and working with others, all those things that we think are important. So I thought I'd share that today because I've been working on it for like a month straight, so. It's good timing.
What's the cutoff for, say you've got a small handful of students that really aren't grasping a concept, and so it forces the class to circle back around. Where do you cut that off and say, these guys they're not understanding, but we're holding everybody else back?
That's an excellent question. So we try to use like an intervention schedule. So if 80% of the students are getting, so in a classroom of 20, we've got 16 that are getting, so there's your 4 that probably aren't. Those students would go into some sort of intervention. Small group with the teacher, we move on. We kind of use 60% as that number of, if 60% of your, if 40% of your students aren't getting it, it's time to reteach that concept. Because technically, probably that means when you really think about those 60 that got it, there's probably 2 or 3 more that maybe got lucky or have a vague understanding of it. So
They knew just enough.
Yeah, exactly.
So
So
you would change in teaching?
you would go back, yeah, in some way. You might teach it the same way, but you're probably gonna go back and try to do something different within your classroom so the students understand it. So those are how we kind of decide on that. We use a percentage, to make sure that we're not holding a bunch of kids back. But again, we try to use that 80%. Those 20% students are probably in intervention. If it's more than that, we're probably looking at reteaching that skill to the whole group. And then, of course, on the other side of that, there's probably 20% that absolutely get it, and we need to figure out what we're gonna do for them to challenge them while,
You're reteaching
Yeah.
certain things, okay? Okay. Thank you.
I want to start with, again, I guess it's kind of a public thank you to Christina Edgerton, our current 7th grade reading and English language arts teacher. This is the next board meeting that comes around. I'll be talking about Cole Marshall, our new teacher, will be stepping in. Mrs. Edgerton has 2 weeks left after Thanksgiving break. Our new hire, Cole, really wants to get in here, and he is eligible to do that as, he was willing to go back and get his long-term sub licensure on top of his teaching degree, so he can come sub for us for the 2 weeks before Christmas break. And then after, January 4th, when we start back with students, then he will, be working as a full-time salaried employee. But he really wanted to come in early to work with the kids, meet the kids. But again, I was frantically calling many people, August 9th or 10th, begging anybody with the appropriate experience to come teach 7th grade reading and English. And Ms. Edgerton, with much less considering than I thought someone might, said, well, I can give you this semester. So if you happen to see her, I don't know where or why, but a big thank you to her just for filling a role last minute with not a lot of time before her to prep for teaching all day for a semester. So just want to give her a shout out.
I'll jump in, so that's okay, because I have a 7th grader, and I'll tell you, she just did an absolutely phenomenal job with a person who's probably not the most engaged in school right now as a 7th grade boy, and she really did a nice job. So I would echo that from just even a parent perspective. She did an excellent job. I'm excited for the new person, but she was a big asset to the school for the time she was here. Sorry.
Something just quick and fun. 7th grade band choir took a field trip today. Any students who are coming in band choir as 7th grader, I went to the Paramount. I can't remember the name of the show that they were able to see. It was someone with a kind of funky name that I can't pronounce. But they were able to go with our music staff to the Paramount, enjoy a music show, and I'll be honest, the music realm is like I don't know things about music.
So I'm not gonna try and explain, you know, the nitty gritty of what they did, but being in a music class here every day, and then being able to talk about that and take that to a more of a performance environment and see, you know, a real performer. So the feedback from our teachers were that kids really enjoyed it. And a lot of students who, we have a fair amount of students who are in choir because their friends do choir. But the feedback was, yeah, that was actually kind of cool. So I'll take that. Next thing is, Josh, you brought up ISASP scores. Last week, Brian and I met with some Grantwood AEA personnel to do kind of a deep dive into some ISASP scores. And he talked about, you know, if your scores here, what do they really mean? So really fine-tooth comb, looking through everything. You know, the data that we did initially is a little more surface level than using our Grantwood personnel to help us comb through and figure out, you know, are there gaps? So the math department talked about, you know, we're finding gaps, so this is another way we can try and find those gaps based on the state assessment. And let's see, the 2022 would be the second year we took. Spring of 20, they were not here. So then spring of 21 was the first one back after a year hiatus. So now the 2022 data were, not that it's more important, but just every year from now on, we have more data to compare it and look back on after kind of that crazy hiccup that happened a couple of years ago. So really interesting to look through the data, and it's one of those challenges of we're not perfect. You know, but that's okay because we're pushing students to make growth. And that's the important thing is that they get from here to here. So that is an ongoing process that we're going through, and then obviously involving staff with help students meet those goals. Last thing, one of my hats is the Director of Special Education. We just completed count. Given the new Achieve system you've heard me talk about in the past, it's been an absolute mess. So much so that the state is, I think, they're on their second or third pushback of, hey, actually you don't have to certify until this date. They just keep pushing it back. Now, whatever students we serve on October 28th, that Friday, those are the students that we count, and that goes into funding. But as far as our certification process, it's usually, you know, around the same time or a week later, but it's now mid-December. I'm working with Grantwood in that realm too, just to shore up a couple of errors. But when you try and work out two systems at the same time for the whole school year, there's going to be a few errors with that. Just some interesting numbers I thought, if you're interested. This first special education account, 60 students out of our 800 and some are currently in special education. 28 of those are open enrolled in.
28, did you say?
Yep, 28. So about half are students who do not reside in our district that are in special education. Then of the 28, just you can go down to many rabbit holes with this and talk about funding. Of the 28, 4 of those were designated as a level 2, which means they quote unquote count as 2.21 students when it comes to the funding. There's way more to it than that, but just kind of loosely, Danny, please identify this speak on the funding. And then 2 of those 28 open enrolled in are designated level 3. So for every one of those children, we get the amount of funding for 3.74 children. Now, at service level, hey, funding it is good. But obviously students who've been designated as level 2, level 3, you know, sometimes it does require more staffing, more programming, so a lot of that money then funnels back in, which is what it is supposed to do and is appropriate. But just interesting to see how all that shakes out and with the numbers and leveling. So just kind of some numbers for one of you guys to know on that. So.
On top of that, just to add a little bit on that is, Adam is completely right, you get the weighted funding, but any individualized cost that's associated with that student is billed off to the other district too. So it's not that everything we spend has to fit in within this like little amount that we get, we can bill off a lot of, funding and 128 of our 60 years open enrollment, that's very nice, so.
So, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Well, I would say, doing some rough, just checking in my head, that's relative to the percent of our students who are open enrolled in generally. So it's not disproportionate to special ed.
So do you get additional at-risk funding for that? Do you apply for more?
At-risk funding is a different categorical, so it's all within the realm of that weighted special ed account.
Other guys, thanks.
Thanks.
Harley.
I do not have anything,
What?
no,
Okay.
today.
Wait till next meeting.
Board member Tom, do you have anything?
No, I don't.
Kayla? Aaron? No? Jeremiah? I guess I kind of do. I'm kind of concerned, you know, I hear words like culture, bullying, kind of makes the hair stand up on the back of my neck, and yeah, I don't know what to say other than it's very concerning, and we're doing a lot of cool things here, but I don't know if that means we need to start doing some self-analytics. You know, are we really doing what's best for our kids? Are we really doing what we're able to do to keep our kids safe here, to stay purple on purpose? I mean, that's, I guess I think that's the direction we need to start doing some self-evaluations, and, you know, it's disturbing. I'm disappointed, you know. I grew up here, we never had that problem, I don't think. Yes, because we would like, but it's been a problem in the past. We went as far as doing bullying t-shirts, you know, where the whole staff had our team had t-shirts, and the whole district bought in. You know, I don't know if that's something we need to look at. But I would really like to ask the board to consider when we start looking at these work session dates. I would really like the board to consider maybe having a closed session to preempt that work session, just so we all know that we're on the same page with where we want to go with this stuff. In the spirit of being transparent, but I also think that we need to, you know, we have to keep in mind the Privacy Acts, and those type of things, but I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but
Well, if it's okay, I'll use that to kick off my report.
excellent.
Okay. So, I agree on so many levels tonight. One of the words that really stood out to me, it's not the only one, but one of the words that really stood out to me is nimble. We are nimble. I can tell you with just great confidence and transparency, these are conversations that are already happening internally. How do we be more self-reflective? What data can we collect? So what really resonates with me tonight, and I honestly wish that all the people who were in the room could have stayed to hear this, we need to be on the same page. We are always a partner with our community. We always need to be open to our own self-critique, critique from other voices, but the partnership and how do we move through this. So we're nimble, we are not perfect, and so thus the process begins. I have zero concern with us unpacking this conversation moving forward. We would have done it before this if the information we had caused us to. We can never just stop and say, nope, we're untouchable, we can't change. When it becomes apparent, that's exactly what we do. We kick into the now what. What do we need to collect? What do we know? What do we need to gather? And what are we going to do about it? I want to back us up right away on the closed session. Our code is very specific about what boards can go into closed session for. In my responsibility to make sure we stay on the rails as a governing body, you won't be having a closed session. I understand Jason's sentiment and perhaps what's going into those thoughts, and we can talk more about how to accomplish maybe something similar, but you cannot go into the closed session on this topic. Code is very specific about what you can go into closed closed session on. Moving on to work sessions, I'm proposing at least 2 to start us out. I reached out today to Iowa Association of School Boards to see if we could also get some help with facilitation, broader topics perhaps, maybe narrowing in to help us on policy and handbook language. This is a chance to let that unfold. I think there's some good conversations to have around what's the board's role in these conversations. And again, that's not so that we can be like, nope, not your job, stay out of our business, but so that we all have this common understanding of how to write strong policy within the parameters of your role as a board. So I'd like to get us some outside facilitation help on that. I have complete confidence that we can manage those waters together with your experience and my experience, but I'm not too proud to say there are moments when you want another voice in the room. And so would like to see us do that. I completely support the idea of pulling additional policies, so hopefully we're getting good notes as we're listening to comments tonight about which policies you might support pulling from approval tonight for those work sessions. To get us through this process of figuring out when, my original intent was to nail down those dates tonight. Now that I'm trying to loop ISB in, I don't want to get a couple things scheduled and then not be able to hold commitments we've made in the eyes of the public. So instead, I'm going to be working from a list of dates that I know are available mostly on the school calendar. And I'm going to ask, so we're going to plod through this, get your calendars out please. I need to write down which ones are absolutely not going to work for you so that I just get away from them. So when you're ready to talk calendar, I'm going to start naming some dates. You good?
What month are we looking
I'm going to start in January. And I simply need you to tell me if you know you've got a commitment that you cannot move. I'm just going to write your name next to that one. So we don't have to spend a lot of time, but you do need your calendars. Wednesday, January 4th. Plod, but quickly plod. Wednesday, January 11th. Pause here to say, I know that you may have non-school commitments that night, but board policy doesn't prevent you from meeting on Wednesday night. It prevents student activities. Wednesday, January 18th. Thursday, January 26th.
That'd probably be worse for me.
Okay. Monday, January 30th.
Monday, you said?
Yep. Wednesday, February 1st. Monday, February 6th. I'm going for a big list here, so I've got a big target. Wednesday, February 8th. Thursday, February 9th. Again, just looking for conflicts. You don't have to get all these.
So I'd have a conflict there probably with that one too.
Thank you, Tom. Monday, February 13th. Wednesday, February 15th.
You say that's Wednesday?
Yep. Last one, Thursday, February 16th.
I'd have a conflict there too. So for me as a blanket, I guess I'm more available on Wednesday, actually.
I agree with that 100%.
All right, when I can have some firm dates in place with IASB's availability, I will get those confirmed and on a district calendar so that everyone knows what those dates are.
General timeframe, like how long
I
would that
would-
meeting take-ish?
I would probably guess 6 to 7:30, an hour and a half. 90 minutes is gonna push even adults to be productive.
Yeah, okay, all right.
How long did you say? I'm sorry.
I'm guessing about 90 minutes, and certainly we can keep adding these dates. It's not, the goal is not to expedite, the goal is to do it well. And then, similar but different reason, I wrote to you on Friday about the current status of performance bond issues with Apex. If necessary, I would like us all queued up for a special board meeting right away, mid next week. So I would need to know availability for either the 30th or the 1st. And I believe that should be Wednesday and Thursday. So again, Tom, maybe the same issue, but this one I don't have as much flexibility on.
30th would probably be best for me, that's Wednesday, you said, right?
Yeah, if we weren't prepared, so this is part of the issue, whether we can have legal documentation in place. I might have to take the latter. Would you absolutely not be available, or it's just more difficult?
More difficult, probably, yeah.
Okay, we're gonna be a little bit at the mercy of legal on this one.
And it would be a short, special board meeting.
Will legal be here, or are they gonna be on Zoom, or?
I don't know the answer to that. I wanna make sure the board has the resources they need in the room, so I guess I would be pushing for that.
So this is falling back more towards, it's going south and performance bond is needing full.
Right, so we are in pre-default stage right now, trying to work through. We've got some very key pieces hinging on today and around next Monday as far as funding, which leads to our ability to claim performance default. The goal is that not happen. The goal is that things get back on track, but we need to be queued up and ready to launch us into the formal claim where the performance bond, the surety, steps in and creates the plan rather than the general providing the plan. And the surety's involved at this point, really pushing for details and clarification on those steps. This is sort of like tipping who's driving the bus. And our understanding as of talking to Crystal, our attorney, on Thursday, is that we believe this is gonna require board action to do the formal claim. Thus far, it's been something that would fall within my authority.
So from a financial standpoint, that won't affect the status of the job or
No.
anything like that?
No.
So how long does it take to process a claim?
I don't know the answer to that. There is a certain a waiting period. Our understanding is that we are in that period right now by filing the pre-default claim, so it was very important to get that started. And then there's a period of time that the general contractor has to provide adequate workout plans. That again.
Which they're in the process of too, correct? So then will that, you call it a surety?
Surety.
Surety, would they take over hiring a new contractor, or would they still work with Apex?
They have full decision-making
So
on
they
that.
might work with Apex, they might just bring somebody else in.
I believe that the process we're in right now is as far as they would go with Apex, but they get to decide. They hold the bond, which means they are financially on the hook to see the project through to completion.
And they would use the cost or the amount of the performance bond that the contractor, Apex, put in
For any
in order to hire
overages
somebody
or-
else and they would pay for finishing it.
Any other questions about, not the date anymore, but what's going on?
Timeline-wise, you know, for turnover of any of these buildings, then does that push things back if they've got to try to bring in and hire another contractor, or
I
what
don't
kind of
think so.
schedule do they keep?
I don't think so, because we've gotten over the hump on, we have the three, it's really four lingering pieces. One is the CTE shop, two is the multi-purpose building. Three, I would put in next, the punch list on all the current areas that we are occupying. And then fourth would be area 200 out front. So we have temp occupancy on the industrial tech shop now, punch list to go. We have temp occ on the multi-purpose building as of today. We went through inspections, punch list to go. Punch list is up, is still lingering here. And then we're really not that far off of our target in area 200 for a March, April. Once we adjusted after the initial supply delays to March, April, we're looking to be on track with that. So I'm not anticipating a large gap in time. I believe our goal should be for Apex to successfully see this project through because of one major factor being because of their knowledge of the project right now. We will lose time bringing another general up to speed,
Yeah.
no doubt about
And
it.
how does that look? Should they continue to use our subcontractors, the subcontractors? I don't.
Again, that's the surety's discretion, probably, because there are materials already on site that are purchased through those subcontractors would be one element I think that would be factored in.
So they just have to fall in line and do it for what was bid.
They're solid bids, yep. That is my understanding. If there's any exception to that, that's what the bond is for,
So
the
that secondary-
performance bond.
Yeah, okay, so that secondary contractor knows what he's getting into. And he can turn that away if he doesn't think he's gonna be able to do it for that, or.
But they get the full cost of the project available to them, right, at this point? It's not just a portion.
They get what's remaining.
Oh, they only get what's remaining.
We have significant amount already paid to subs and generals. We would be holding retainage from work completed and whatever is still slated to be done.
And we can find that fine line between where Apex stopped and the new contractor begins, and how those subs are paid going forward.
We have a lot of that documented,
Seems
and
messy, isn't it?
and the surety is involved in that process. I tend to lean toward this is realistic, that Apex is going to finish. We are now, as you know, last month and on your consent agenda tonight, we are doing joint checks to subcontractors. So everyone is paid that bulk of what's happening now. And we have the detailed workout plan from who they're paying what today. And we're talking about missed payments anywhere from May through August by subcontractor. We have all that documentation. We have their written plan. Tomorrow, we're supposed to have proof of payment in our hands for the portion that went out overnighted tonight, with the remainder to be paid on the 28th, which is why we're queuing up for the just in case that doesn't happen.
Well, this is too where you hope that OPN has done their due diligence in keeping track of where the project is from a financial aspect, so that the retainage that they have left is enough to finish the project.
Yes.
You know, because if they screwed up or missed a few things,
Well,
then the
that's
retainage won't be enough to.
What we can
complete.
see, because the pay apps that we see, I will tell you that I looked at them much more carefully in the last 3 months than I did the first 3 months.
Yeah.
But you can see on there what is owed for labor, what is owed for materials on site not yet paid for. It's very well documented and every month checked and signed off by OPN.
Yeah. Good.
But when you're giving them checks and you're cutting checks to different companies, you're cutting to Apex and that other company.
They have to be joint checks per our contract. We initially explored direct checks.
That's what I was wondering.
But we know now that thankfully we didn't do that because we would have violated the contract. The contract spells out that this is the path you must follow through joint checks. So basically what happened last month, what we anticipate happening tomorrow is we will overnight the checks to Apex, who signs off them and overnights them right back so that they're on site for people to pick up.
I don't see how that wouldn't force their hand to pay. I mean, we do that, you kind of hand them out as we finish the project. There should be no way that there should be any question that they wouldn't pay.
It's just back payments that are in question now. There is no question about current.
From a few months ago.
Right, from May through
So going
August.
forward this way, that's what, but.
We
yeah, are
can
you-
continue with that indefinitely through the end of the project. In fact, we will. If we
This keeps
stay-
those subs coming.
And that was according to the contract between us and Apex.
Yeah,
So are we out of, do we have any subs that are not coming on site because they haven't paid?
we have. We saw a real stall out for, I'd say, the last 3 weeks. Today was much better. There was a lot more activity on site. That also stems from, part of the workout plan from Apex has been to assure us competent on-site workers from Apex. And there were some staffing issues there, some turnover. Everyone was on site. The plan is in place as their new superintendent was on Thursday, I think, but, no, earlier, Monday. And at our OIC meeting this morning, he gave every indication, I felt that he was completely up to speed on the project.
So they had some leadership turnover.
They did.
Apex did.
As they should.
Yeah, go figure.
The CFO has been on site a couple times for whatever that's worth. The CEO has been on site a couple times, attended our OAC meeting this morning. I'll be very honest, I don't find that particularly helpful, but in somebody's eyes, it might be just the presence of.
We're not the only ones in this boat, I'm assuming.
I can't actually speak to that.
Have you experienced this before?
No,
In different building projects?
I have not, and I've been through, as you know, multiple building projects, not just here. And actually, interestingly, as we marched through this with OPN, we're all learning. We know how to reference a performance bond, we know how to reference a payment bond. Until we set to do the work, no one had done it. And so it's been fascinating. I never want any district to have to go through it, but it has been fascinating to see it all really work the way it's supposed to work.
Well, we've always said when you have problems, that's when you learn the most. Right, Karen?
What's that?
When you have problems, that's when you learn the most.
Exactly.
Well, and
never
transfer
stopped
that to
learning.
some of what you heard tonight from our curriculum, our math curriculum department. I mean, it's the same when we challenge kids to solve problems and not just give them the steps to walk through. The learning is powerful.
Wasn't OPN working with Apex on that Prairie
Correct.
school building too? Or they don't have any of those kind of problems there?
I cannot speak to that.
I would agree with you more as far as having the same contracts and having people in here knowing what's going on. You want that for sure, but I would think going forward, we want to basically force their hand that they can't, there's no check that you write that they can't, they'll have to pay their
Joint
contract.
checks all the way.
Yeah.
Yep. Agreed.
Now, does that require a lawyer or anything like that? to be
Done.
involved that way?
We've already done.
Okay.
Done and documented.
So any lawyer fees that we experience above and beyond what would have been normal?
That's a good question, Tom. Having not gotten a bill yet, I hadn't dug in on that, and I should learn this.
And I think that'll come down to a question to the surety bond.
Is there any extra cost that we're incurring to fix the situation they put us in?
There is a cost of doing business, we all know that. Good business and bad business, there's a cost. What you can bill off to someone else, you should always check. Good questions. That's the end of my report.
That it? Well, we want the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
And we second to approve the consent agenda, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Move on to dialogue and action.
So before we finalize a list of what you might like to pull from this approval, just maybe bigger picture. Last month, there were a couple of policies that we chose to pull out, not pull out, but to draw attention to because they were of any particular interest. We certainly don't have to revisit those specifically if you don't want, but one was around open enrollment management and the other was around wage increases for substitute nutrition staff. And if you have had time and feel like questions were answered, you don't have to, again, specifically talk about those, but I just want to refresh your memory. The policies referenced outside of 400 and 500 by citizen comments tonight can certainly be added to the work session, so we've got those in our notes. You do not have to add that to your board action tonight. For example, the policy around harassment. You don't have to figure out how to word that in a motion, that can just be done under advisement. The board can decide which policies get discussed that night, and they don't even have to tonight. You don't have to decide that tonight.
So is that a situation where we can table that second reading agreement?
I would really appreciate it if you would not table the entire, because there's some policies in here that are around curriculum development that are part of our December due desk audit to the Department of Education. So I think it's best to really pull out what you really intend from this grouping. So anything you jotted down that begins with a 400 or a 500, would like you to list in the motion as being pulled from second reading. Just so we know what we're doing here, a work session is not, board doesn't take action. You spend your time learning together, discussing, and when you are ready, it goes on a subsequent board agenda to then, I probably at that point would advise you to start fresh with a first reading of a revised policy based upon the work sessions, and then you've got a whole nother month to do a second reading. It gives you that ample time to really think and listen, make sure all voices are heard. That was a lot of talking. Somebody want to summarize what I just said?
So you can table certain ones, is what you're saying, pull out. Or we can have for further discussion at a later meeting.
I'd say rather than table, let's just make sure the motion identifies the policies being pulled from approval. That way you can go back into a first reading process. If you table it, you're technically, it's not critical that you do it this way. I'm just trying to give us ample time to work through these with a new work session, first reading, second reading. So if you just pull them, that would be my recommendation.
That's an actual.
There's already one already pulled off, you just have to add those policies to it.
Yeah, the 503.1's been pulled off. Right.
So I would recommend something like this. Directing administration to pull, list your policy numbers, and approve remaining policies as presented on second reading, something like that.
Okay, I move for the administration to pull 104.1 R1, 502.4.
Aaron, we're only talking about series 4 and 500.
What's that?
We're only talking about series 4 and 500.
You can still add that
Okay.
policy 100 to the work session later.
Okay. I said 502.4. I have 503.1, that's already pulled. 203.1, 503.4 to be discussed later. Did I leave anything out as far as anybody else took any other notes?
I heard a 200 in there.
Do you want that in the motion? Because it's not currently in.
Let me do a double check before we answer Harley's question and make sure. I also have this list of not 4s and 5s. They're in numerical order, so let's just make sure. I don't see the numbers that Aaron spoke to. Right?
It's 203, but not 201.
It's the conflict of interest that's in here. So what number did you say to pull that started with a 200 in there?
I said 203.1, maybe I.
No, you're correct. I'm
Okay.
just making sure. So that does not need to be part of your motion.
Okay.
It will be included in the work session.
Okay.
Okay, just to confirm, the motion that I have then is to direct administration to pull 502.4, 503.4, along with the 503.1 that's currently being pulled.
And that was 104.1, you said not to, or not that either?
It's not necessary to include it in this motion.
Okay.
So do I have a motion to approve the second reading of board policies, or board policy series 400, 500, and other updates excluding 503.1, 502.4, 503.4. Did I miss any?
So you have your motion from Aaron.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Do I have to read that again?
No.
Okay, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Same sign. Motion passes. Bus purchase.
One bid that matches specifications. So we kind of have to refresh your memory about what we were bidding there. We had a second bid that had all of the specs changed to a diesel. So we're giving you the one matching bid here at $130,063. I have it here, you're welcome to pass it around if you're interested in the details. I did make a note here. Bob Hayden is doing a lot of the direct communication around this process this time around. One of the sales reps did tell him that beginning in 2026, we are on a pathway toward no diesel production in school buses. I don't have that confirmed, that's just sales rep talk. It doesn't really surprise me in light of work around emissions in our country. So I think I have dragged my feet quite a long time in starting to infuse gas buses into our fleet for reasons I hope I've explained. Was ready to make the move and thus bid the way we approved it, but this really just solidifies that the future appears to be not just in gas, it'll be propane, electric, etc. But your bid specs were for gas. And we should see by 2025, which is not that far away, the gas buses in 84 passenger. So you are, if you desire, approving the 77 passenger gas engine. Any other details I can look up or pass this to you. It is a little higher than has been in our budget projections in the past, and I just think that's an adjustment. It actually was adjusted in the worksheets that you saw tonight already to start seeing a higher price on these buses.
Well, just a comment, I think it was a few years ago that when we purchased one that was a diesel for mid-90s.
Yeah,
It was 94,
correct.
96, something like that.
Yeah, that fast. Yeah.
And now
Was
we're
that
at
the same
100.
size?
No, that probably was an 84.
That was an 84
Oh,
diesel,
diesel.
yeah. And it was diesel,
Yeah, bigger than that one.
yeah. It's crazy.
So Bloomberg, I see. Thomas didn't come back to
They
home.
don't make gas.
Did you say that before?
I didn't answer directly because you were asking a very pointed question about who would be sending bids to or something like that. We knew we were all getting a bid when we wrote gas specs.
Because Thomas doesn't make the gas. What's, if it pushes towards gas for emissions, they don't make one, they're supposed to go in the future. aren't they?
I'm sure they'll be trying.
Ben's going to LP.
Good.
Because the co-op, we're gonna put, LP dispenser, they got about 5 or 6 buses.
You say getting them then?
Benton has the goal, the central city has a large number, which is the Benton.
Yeah. Not all of us.
Bob Ady and Bob Stevens have discussed that, so I feel comfortable that their current recommendation is to put gases in the want to leave that.
I'll make a motion to approve the bus purchase.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded to approve the bus purchase of a 77 passenger gas bus for $130,063. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. SBRC requested to modify the law bill for increased bill.
She's going to explain C and D together, just because they're the same concept. So before you look at numbers, we're trying to digest that. We have the ability every year to make application to the school budget review committee to allow us to obtain additional spending authority. So that's what your approval would do tonight. You always are aiming for maximizing spending authority, always. Whether or not you fund that for the tax asking gets determined, so putting cash behind it gets determined when we set our budget, publish our tax asking in March. So you don't have to decide if you want to tax for it tonight, but you absolutely need to meet the deadline and always have the spending authority. That's very important to your financial health district. So what you're looking at is 2 different mechanisms that can be applied for right now. One is for increased enrollment. So students who were not on your account last year, you can get on-time funding, or in this case, on-time spending authority. We take the numbers transfer through to be $57,080.10. This spending authority would be coming in. The bill, open it all out, is going out. All right, do you have any clarification?
No, that's how it works.
That's all I got.
I'll make a motion to approve the SBRC request of modified allowable growth for increased enrollment.
I'll second.
Then moving seconded to increase the SBRC request to modify allowable growth. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Passes. Motion passes. We didn't have any further discussion on item D.
I'll make a motion to approve the SBRC request of modified allowable growth for open enrollment out, not on prior year's headcount.
I'll second
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
it. Aye.
Motion, where was it here?
Opposed?
Motion passes. Right? I just,
You didn't call for it,
what's that?
though. Just call for it.
Oh,
Any
opposed? I'm sorry. Opposed. Okay, motion passes. All right, line item E, early separation agreement.
Okay, we typically look at this in November. You have two linked documents. We can get into the details in a moment, but high level, the board has the ability each year to consider offering early separation agreements. The documents linked here will spell out the timeline for employees if you approve them. We take care of it after approval if you approve. You have the ability, once we open the documents, to make changes. The three areas you want to consider is, they're listed on your agenda. Eligibility criteria. The only thing you would change here is the number of years served in the district. We have historically kept that at 20 years. The documents attached say 20 years. You have the ability to move that. We are not recommending that you move that, but you can. Number two, the benefit calculation. This is written as previous years to calculate 60% of current base salary in a one-time payment. You have the ability to change that number, that percentage, flat amount, however you want to handle that. In the non-certified document, that item is, instead of 60% of current salary, it's $10,000. And third, it's not really something you change in the document, but at any point that you want to have me show you the long-term projections to the management fund, I can do that as well. In that realm, again, before we get into details, our current management fund tax asking is basically covering our general liability costs and workman's comp because they have gone up. We're good there. It is, because this is a tool that the board might consider, it is within your authority when tax asking comes around to make an adjustment to provide more into the management fund if this is a tool that you want to use. The insurance is going to go down. But our projections build an escalation in as best we can predict. So that part of the conversation doesn't make me uncomfortable at all. You don't have to offer this every year, you know that, of course. And in terms of that tax asking, we do have evidence in our projections to show us that our valuations are going to continue to rise, and the current amount that you're collecting for management fund levy will increase even without changing the rate. So you've got some room in there that we can't spell out to the penny or dollar for you tonight, but these conversations about finding a way to fund an early separation package, 1, 2, 3, whatever, you have the tools in hand to do that without a large impact on your tax asking. Some perhaps, but not large.
And
And just a reminder as to why we do consider it a management tool is because sometimes the tenured salaries are a lot more costly to the general fund than bringing in a new teacher. So that's where we see the savings, and that's why it's considered a good tool, just as a reminder. I know you guys have heard that before, but.
You had referenced $10,000 for something, and I was kind of looking through it and just thinking I didn't see it.
So the
It's in
10,
the non-certified.
go ahead,
It's
Artie.
in where? Oh, it's in the
Yep, it's the
non-certified.
non-certified one.
Okay.
Okay. Which piece do you want to dig into first, if at all? The budget side or the language of the documents?
I'd like to see the budget.
Okay, so I just shut my screen down so I could get in there and hide. You know the rules here. You know you can't know who and probably how many qualify, but I believe I have them hidden, but you can still see the impact. I know they're hidden, I just need to verify that you can see the impact. Do you suppose, you're looking at them, you can't see them either because I've been in front of you. I'm gonna check that before, I'm just gonna get this off the screen.
So in both these situations,
No,
certified and non-certified, they pay, the people that are accepting it pay the early separation, they pay their own health insurance, correct? Is that what I'm reading?
Yeah, in years past, not recently, but there's been language written right in here that's about the district will pay it. We've gone entirely away from that liability because it's a bit unpredictable. So now we just use a flat amount. Most people would use it to cover health insurance, but that's on them to figure out.
Just a interesting tidbit is that any employee who retires or is currently on our insurance has the ability to stay on our insurance and pay their premiums to the district until they're of age of Medicare. So 65. So really, although we aren't paying it, they do have the opportunity to have a pretty good health plan still. And that's all chief staff and staff that's eligible and on our plan of the company.
Okay, so to talk you through the budget, what you're going to see here is if every person who qualified was paid out the 60% of the certified and 10,000, I don't have it showing yet because I'm going to know what you're going to see. So the number you're going to see is extreme, but we have to project that. It is not going to play out this way.
It will include everybody that's eligible.
Correct. So you should not panic by these numbers in yellow.
You said there's 3 people.
I haven't said that yet.
Can you?
I feel like there's this rule in educational statistics, if n is less than 10, you shouldn't say.
Sure.
It's just no it is. So, we're not gonna run the management fund down to shy of 20,000 by paying out multiple packages. That's not the proposal we're asking for tonight. I wouldn't anticipate it being anywhere near this. I would anticipate it being in the range of needing to talk a little bit more about $25,000 or $50,000 more in the management fund to offset packages and increases in insurance.
But it could happen.
You're right. And we're not quite to really diving into the documents yet, but it is, if I can say this, our recommendation tonight that if you are considering youth not offer the youth non-certified package, you did a really nice job of summarizing that when we were talking recently.
So Danny and I talked a lot about the equity of offering it between certified and non-certified staff, both categories. However, I challenged her a little bit and said, really, we can't afford to lose any of our non-certified staff. We're having a hard time finding those employees. You can see we have them posted right now. And so, although equity is important, I think that it's our job to make sure that we aren't kind of
On the flip side of that though, what about hiring teaching staff?
So it's a similar concern, especially in the market we're in right now for hiring. We have a situation you were just talking about, it was an unfilled position, but it was a late resignation. Part of the reason we do this, what we do, is to get out very early in the hiring pipeline, so to speak, if we know we're gonna have a vacancy. That, coupled with the true savings to the general fund that we will see annually by this tool, makes it, like, I feel comfortable that it's my responsibility, our responsibility to recommend you really do consider offering this. Hiring is always gonna be a potential problem right now in our climate. But, so the other thing I wanna add to that is, you know that we are not in a funding crisis in our general fund. We've talked extensively about how well positioned the district is. It's that way because when moves make sense, the board has been willing, after careful consideration and lots of questions, you've been willing to step into these more difficult conversations so that we're always way ahead of a crisis. Crisis is not even on the horizon, but you do have this window, this opportunity to make a shift in your general fund expenditures if any one of the people that qualify applies. We're talking about somewhere around a probably $45,000-ish swing in your operating costs per year if one person elects to take early separation.
And to piggyback off that, another reason that I would not recommend, this me speaking personally, to offer to the non-certified staff is because of the increases that you have recently gave your non-certified staff, which is amazing. Really losing a tenured employee is not gonna gain us what would be beneficial.
Well, I was just wondering if, because of the hiring issues and the uncertainties in replacing them, when we start talking about the employee benefit calculation, and how it affects the management fund, if all of them took it, maybe the smarter move would be to not make it so attractive, instead of 60%, maybe it's 30%, and that one-time payout to non-certified is 5,000 rather than 10,000. Maybe it's, maybe that would swing it to not have all of them take it, and then our management fund would look the way it looks.
Yeah,
Or
I
could
think
look.
you're right.
But you
to-
said a savings of $45,000 per person?
I mean.
Per person or total?
Per
Per
person.
person.
Per application of a certified staff member. So you're right, those are the things you should talk about, maybe changing it to say 30,000. I think it's just a balance of when does it become non-enticing? And you just would have to ask yourselves that too, because there's no right or wrong answer. I don't hold the key to that. What would you essentially walk away from employment early for in terms of it's a separation agreement? And I don't know the answer to that.
Can you go back up, please?
Depends how sick and tired the person is of teaching, or of the kids.
I guess if the real objective is to retain your non-certified staff, whether we make it, if you really want to leave, you're gonna take the lower amount anyway. And so if our main objective is to retain that faculty, then I don't really see a reason to lower it.
On the non-certified?
Yes.
Yeah, the
Correct.
non-certified, what you said, talking about not offering to non-certified.
That's
At
our
all.
recommendation.
Yeah, so just say, we don't allow it to non-certified, we're only allowing it to certified. And then that number, instead of it being 60% of their salary,
For the certified.
for the certified, maybe you drop that down to 40 or 50%.
This impact is happening in which year? 24, okay, that's why. And so the levy revenue goes up by 50 grand there.
We had projected that when we were looking at your tax asking last
Okay.
year. I have not adjusted that based on this conversation because I wanted you involved if there was any adjustment conversation. I can't tell you today what tax asking it will take to bring in $200,000 because our valuation is our valuation is going to go up. That's in all of our projections, not just ours, but those from Piper Jaffray.
So you don't have numbers plugged in for people?
I do. It's calculating into your bottom line, but
Okay,
it's
but it's hidden. Okay, yep, gotcha.
What would you guys feel is attractive for a teacher to
Am I-
accept the early separation?
Are you asking me?
I would say everyone, you for sure, and what you guys feel, what's attractive? 60% is definitely attractive.
It is.
Is 40% attractive?
I would tell you that I don't know, first of all. I don't talk to people about this, but given that the last several have been approved, and I don't remember which years, but we have, at 60%, it's going to clearly be lower this year. Then I can't tell you what people are gonna think about that.
Oh.
But they're gonna know, they're gonna notice.
They know that it's been 60% passed.
Oh, yes. If you are in the realm of this even being part of where you're at in your career, you absolutely know year to year.
They actually have to sign off on it, so the individuals who qualify, for the criteria they've set have to sign off on it, acknowledge whether they've received the
Whether they want it or
information,
not.
whether they want it or
But
not.
I'm sure the teachers understand if there's, in the past, maybe there's been 4 or 3 or 2, whatever. And this year, if there's 10, they gotta say, well, obviously, they're not gonna offer the same amount to all 10 of these
But we don't
people.
get to know the number, so.
But if we know it's a higher number than what it has been in years past.
You can limit it to the number, can't you?
You absolutely can. Some years we've said 1.
Oh, we would only accept one.
First come, first served type thing? Or is there a criteria for that?
It is first submitted, I think is the most comfortable. At OADCIG, we had, I'll just call it a bit of a convoluted system that had to do with birth date, month date. I mean, it was something that made me really uncomfortable. I'm so glad we don't do that.
You feel better with rock, paper, scissors, we can do that way.
Absolutely.
Rochambeau.
It's a tool. You don't have a lot of tools that you can manage your yearly costs quite like this, that aren't just truly budget cuts. This isn't maybe they take it, maybe they don't, maybe you plan ahead for it. We haven't opened the documents, but they are pretty straightforward. I believe I'd be happy to walk through any part of them, if that's helpful.
So you can't say the number, how many there is.
I prefer not to.
But if we were to limit how many we're gonna be able to, or that we were offering, would there be any way to show that in our budget projections?
Yeah, if I take it off the screen and Harley's quicker than I, she can show you one, just pick one because they're all close, and then I can have that one and that deal. She's getting.
No, yeah, I was just thinking, I think it would be reasonable maybe to give them a total expense, right? If everyone took.
For all, ish. I'm sorry,
For everybody.
correct. I'm gonna get my screen off, Harley, if you. Where's the number?
Do you want to see just one?
Here's Ken, what do you want to see?
What did you say, Harley?
Just one?
Yeah.
You want to see if there's one person for everyone? Okay, you can pull it back up, but or I could just tell you, the fiscal year 24 ending balance is $156,000. So that's back up in the,
From 19.
from 19, where we are very comfortable at.
And that management fund is, our general rule of thumb is right around 100. So we have,
You would like to, yep.
Or maybe slightly more with the increase. That's a good point, our insurance.
Say it again.
If we had just one, so we're talking just certified because
Yep.
we,
I think we're all agreeing that we're not responsible.
on average, if one of the the certified staff members took the early retirement, fiscal year 24, rather than 19,000, ending balance would be 156.
And the one that you had showed previously showed 19,000.
All qualifying certified and non-certified, 19,000. So that's a very big swing. And you could
How
even
big of
do,
a-
if you want Marley to tell you that, sorry.
But the
How,
balance, and we don't want to necessarily have the management fund have a exorbitant amount of money in it. either.
No, there are some districts that do that for reasons that they need to discuss at the board table that don't match the philosophy we talked about here.
if we're not offering it to non-certified, or do you know, or can you tell us what the cost of offering it to non-certified is? To the management fund?
Yeah. I'm just gonna leave all those questions to you right now. because you got it. Well, I mean, I will tell you how many there are. Oh, yeah, excellent. Actually, yeah, apparently it's like baking. Filters are baking.
So we can't really discuss that number then, either.
Yeah, I mean, I think that ultimately the range is, you're gonna, well, $191,000 would be if everyone took, every single person, non-certified and certified. I mean, we're talking $200,000.
It would cost 200,000.
That's correct.
And what would be left in the balance?
19.
19.
Yep, that's
And that's what we had showed,
Yep.
we had showed previously. Anyway.
I mean, you guys can do math, so.
The question really is this a priority of the board right now, as a tool, management tool, because you have this window of time that could impact your operating budget for next year. We can't promise you that it will. We can't promise you what our true hiring would look like when we fill a vacancy.
Harley, would you say one would save us? In salary?
46.
In the general fund, yeah, 45,000, roughly. I mean, you don't know who you're gonna hire,
Yeah.
but.
And what's the name of the fund at, total if we don't need it?
Oh, you're showing it.
Oh, yeah, but I'm accountable now. I will not touch my.
Okay, we do not offer it at all, Jason. The ending balance fiscal year 24 will be 211,000.
And you, at the point you would talk about your management levy, you are all familiar with how that levy conversation goes in the spring. The goal is always to think about tax reduction, at least that's been the stance of this board, I believe, but not drastically necessarily, and, there are other conversations that should come in when we can about pre-bond payment. That's a way for you to significantly save the taxpayers' interest down the road. So it's a very complex conversation that's difficult, that we're not ready to really have it because we don't have valuations. So you just really have this lever right now that you decide if it's good or not, and then we bring you scenarios around tax asking time that match your goals.
Ideally, what would the ending balance be on, is it around 100,000?
Yeah, I think Harley raised a good point about us shifting that mindset just a little bit as insurance goes up. I don't know what you were thinking. Traditionally, we've set $100,000. You just want to be prepared for the unknowns, and in a district of this size, that's just been kind of a standard number I've been trained up through, but I think you raise a good point.
So are you thinking like 110 or 100?
I'm
I would
thinking,
say 115, 120. I mean,
120?
yeah, because, it's all about your general liability that comes out of there. You just never know what's gonna happen. You don't have that in there.
If you offer it to 2, you'd be under 100,000 more likely though, right?
If they both, yeah.
If
if I did my math right, which no guarantees, if we don't offer it to the non-certified, our ending balance would be around 50, give or take a little bit, thousand. That's
Savings
just
on the general.
at the end of the management fund. So if we took the ending balance that's right there is 19,000, I'm just kind of figuring that there's another about $36,000 in there, and so I'm figuring that's probably about $55,000 in, that would be the balance if we only offered it to the certified.
And everybody took it, is what you're saying.
And everybody took it. And I've not ever experienced it where we've offered it and everybody took it.
Most recently, how many years in a row, you can see this from our, down the left side, our staff is not taking it. We have not had an early separation agreement accepted by a certified staff member since 2000. Probably that should be 17 because it paid out in 18.
So have you guys, and I know we haven't seen the evaluations, but have you guys jumped forward 1 year? We freeze this year, jump forward 1 year and see what that looks like, that projection looks like?
What are we freezing? What variable?
Like, don't do anything.
Don't offer it.
Don't offer it this year.
Yeah.
What is that, how does that look?
You want to just delete, I'm down below. You want to delete that?
Because I would think we'd be able to stay within Harley's.
We're gonna have way too much money in the management fund if you freeze it.
You're saying we're not offering it this year.
Yeah.
And for multiple years is what you're asking. Freeze, not,
I'm saying, if we don't
Don't
do
offer
it this
this
year, what does the projection look like next year? I know we don't have the evaluations, right, but
you ready?
Yeah, but it'd be the same thing, it'd be a similar expense.
I know.
it
It'd
wouldn't
just
be
be
the same.
it'd be in the next year. I think you might pick up 1 or 2 certified, or non-certified staff.
So,
So you're
but
asking
one,
if we push it down, push it, the can down the road.
kick the can, but then we can offer it to multiple people. But it looks like to me, from what we're saying, is if we offer it, we only offer for one person to stay within Harley's.
If you don't want to play with the variables at the top, then you would offer 2 more.
But we have the ability to mess with the variables at the top.
Absolutely, and that's the heavy.
Because there's plenty of money in the general fund that we can move over here if we needed it.
No.
But
And also history shows that if you offer 12-3, I'm not saying that they can't all take it, but that there's a likelihood that they don't all take it.
I don't think I've ever experienced it. I mean, I suppose there could be one year, but.
I think we should limit the applicants to 1. Except for, because then that would put our management fund at a balance that we're comfortable with.
yeah, it should be understanding.
Well, we would still be around 150,000 or so. If we did just go high.
You guys, are you interested in first come, first served?
First one to serve.
That depends on our. I think that the only part of the document that would need to be changed,
And then not allowing it to non-certified, not offering it just to non-certified at all.
I think I agree with you, Tom, there, as far as that goes with having 1, because I don't mind kicking the can down the road, so to speak, but I guess you have the opportunity there, and then you're not addressing everything in 1 year. It's inevitable if you've got some teachers that are getting close, you may want to go ahead and just kind of, just at least allow that to funnel through a little bit.
And there are more certified that would be eligible next year.
There's a possibility, yeah, there are.
we do project out who's going to be eligible in 1 year. So we can, and from time to time, modify this spreadsheet to see across the board, but there's so many assumptions about people saying, hey, here's. I'm looking for in the document, where the modification would need to happen to get to the offering 1. And I really think, I would just want to be able to work at that. Not in this setting. We've done that language in the past, so I have, when I can go back to it to make sure.
So would you rather just table them?
No, just, you don't need the document perfect for approval. You will state in your motion
I'll make a motion for early separation agreement, for certified staff only, and limit it to 1.5.
Second. It's been moved and seconded to offer early separation agreement person to one certified.
Can I just make sure for clarification, everything else as written, so the 60% of years of service were only modified to move to one. I would want to make sure that's.
Yeah.
clear.
Yep, yep.
So just so we get the minutes accurately reflecting this.
Yeah, that was my intention.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. School board negotiation team.
We need to.
In the past, it's usually been, like, I know you've done a lot, Jason, and you have too, Darren, right?
I've done it.
Kayla's done it.
Kayla?
Jason's done it. The hard part here is that when we get to the real, work with the association, it can only be to can be uncomfortable. That has everything to do with the rules.
No problem. It has really been bad here lately.
I can join in with it.
The board needs to appoint.
I'd like to appoint Jason and myself to, school board negotiations team.
I'll second. Okay, it's been moved and seconded to appoint Tom and Jason to the negotiation team. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Confirm date and time of next meeting. 6 PM, December 19th.
Correct.
Need a motion?
Move to adjourn.
It's been moved to adjourn at, where's the clock here?
No,
Okay,
second.
I'll second it.
8:24. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Jason.